let's talk about 10 books that you should read if you're trying to get back into reading or to get into reading for the first time. Hi, I'm Lacey and I love to read. Thanks for coming to my channel. I came up with a list of 10 books that hopefully a new reader or a returning reader would be able to read quickly and enjoy and get back into this hobby. So here is my criteria. I wanted it to be fast-paced, under 400 pages, and it made you want to pick up more. So I did 5 different genres. I did contemporary romance, rom-com, thriller, fiction, and then dark-ish romance. I'm not a big dark romance reader, but I have read a few, and the ones that I've read when I started the series, I could not stop. So let's get started talking about contemporary romance. So the first one I picked was Beach Read. I read this in the beginning of my reading journey, but it's about Augustus. Ever since reading Song of Achilles, I cannot pronounce names. It's about Augustus or August and January. It's about 2 writers and they end up at beach houses right next to each other and challenge each other to write the other person's genre. So it's really interesting. They already knew each other before this, but it's a good time. Beach Read is about 358 pages. So it's not super short, but it's long enough that you feel like you get everything you need from the book. And if you go online, you'll see this book is talked about everywhere. It's people's favorite Emily Henry book. And once you read this, you'd want to read all of her books. Next, I have Love in Other Words by Christina Lauren. This book was so good. Once again, beginning of my reading journey. So I feel like that was also something I took into account was when did I read it? And did it give me those feelings of, wow, I love reading and all I want to do is keep reading, which this book did, Beach Read did. And so it is about 2 friends who have known each other a long time, and it's a second chance romance, and it goes from past to present the whole time. It is so good. I think that in this book, I felt a lot of feelings, and I really love the characters, and I still think about it sometimes, and I read this probably 3 to 4 years ago, so it's a book that lasts years of enjoyment. A lot of people who have read it loved it, and it's only, I broke my own rule. It's 403 pages, but 403 isn't bad. And it's, because it goes past to present, I feel like the chapters go really fast because once you hit past and you're like, no, I need to go back, or vice versa. So it's really good. Now we'll move on to rom-coms. So the first one's Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter. And this book was your quintessential high school prom rom-com movie. It was so good. I don't typically read books set in high school. I just don't really like to read books set in high school, but this book, I could not put it down. It's so funny. It's so cute. It's just so good. It is fake dating and best friends to lovers. It is so cute. It's just so cute. And you think you're reading, like when you're reading, you feel like you're watching a movie. And of course, Better Than the Movies. It's very much inspired by all of the 90s and 2000s rom-coms that we've all watched. It's so good. And what this book did for me was not only did I love it, but it also opened up all of Lynn Painter to me. And then I was searching for that feeling. So I kept looking for more books. And I feel like that's exactly what a book to get you back into reading should do. And this book sits at, don't make a liar out of me, $3.49. So this one is definitely under the 400 pages limit, which I just ignored for the other book. But it's so good. It's so cute. And then my second one for romantic comedies is You Deserve Each Other. Once again, I read this when I started reading again. It's got the tabs. I feel like that is my surefire way to tell that I read this when I started reading. This book was hilarious. Like, I was laughing out loud. This was one of the first times I realized a book since I read when I was a teenager. Like, this book, I could not stop laughing. It was so funny. It was so cute. This literally warms your heart. And it's just so good. It's about Naomi and I don't remember his name. Naomi and Nicholas. Naomi and Nicholas. They are getting divorced. No. They're getting married. Not divorced yet. They're getting married, but they both don't want to go through with it. And so they're trying to sabotage the other person to finally call it quits. And it is so funny. I still think about it. I still regard it as one of my favorite books I've ever read. And it is, let's see how many pages. It has 354 pages and it's just so good. And my next section is thrillers. I don't have any of the thrillers with me. I kind of stopped buying thrillers, but I need to start buying the ones I like so I can have them on my bookshelf, because it looks like I don't really read thrillers anymore. My bookshelf used to only be thrillers, and now it's a lot of historical fiction, fiction, and romance, which is fine because they're very cute. But thrillers are still and going to always be one of my top genres. So going into thrillers is really hard for me to pick because I love, as I just talked about this whole section, I love thrillers, but I was really thinking hard about really fast paced and ones that had a really good plot twist. And even if it's outlandish, I don't mind outlandish thrillers. I think it's fun that it's crazy. So just know if you get thriller recommendations from me, 9 times out of 10, they're like so outlandish. And that's okay, because that's what reading's for, to enjoy things. So the first book that I picked was Never Lie, over here, Never Lie by Frida McFadden. I am a Frida McFadden stan. I think that she is such a great person when it comes to books that make you want to read. I think that you can't go wrong with any Frida McFadden books when you're getting back into reading, or if you're getting into reading and you want to see if you like thrillers. Her books are outlandish. Some people say they can always guess the twist. I never can guess the twist. I don't know if that's just a me thing where I can't guess any twist. The only twist I've ever really guessed was The Silent Patient, and it ruined it for me. So I understand when people get annoyed that they can guess the twist. But for me, with Frida, I can never guess the twist. Never Lie by Frida McFadden. It's 286 pages. It's about Ethan and Trisha. They are looking to buy a house, and so they go to an open house at a psychiatrist's old house, and that psychiatrist actually disappeared. They get snowed in, and so Trisha listens to all of the tapes from the psychiatrist's office to see what happened. It's so good. It's so interesting. It'll have you on the edge of your seat. I think that Frida is just the way to go. The next book, my thriller recommendation portion, is Darling Girls by Sally Hepworth. I have read 2 of Sally Hepworth's books prior to Darling Girls, and those were both non-outlandish twists. So I was kind of writing her off. I was not really planning to read more. And even though the twists for her first books were kind of, in my opinion, less interesting, I was hooked. So her books, like, I wanted to keep reading them, and it just kind of disappointed me what the ending was. But Darling Girls, it was 359 pages. It's about 3 girls who had to live with this horrific foster mother. And it tells from different perspectives, and it's so interesting. It gets you hooked from the start. I really couldn't stop reading it. I was obsessed. Every time a chapter ended, all I wanted to do was keep reading. I think Darling Girls is an amazing book if you want to get into thrillers, get into reading, and just never stop. The next section is fiction. I was gonna go with historical fiction because I love historical fiction. And then I realized I think historical fiction is not in the realm of what I'm talking about right now, because historical fiction is honestly my favorite genre. I feel like I get the most out of those books. Those are the books I think about forever. They're the ones I love so much. But I also think often those are the slowest books to read. And I think instead of getting you into reading, they prevent a lot of people from wanting to keep reading. So that being said, historical fiction is the best. I love it. I could do a whole book, and a whole video. I will probably do a whole video eventually of all my favorite historical fictions because I love historical fiction so very dearly. But I included one in this video, and then I included just a fiction. The first book I decided was Anxious People by Frederick Bachman. And there's like a caveat with this. Do I think this is the fastest book to read? No. Do I think this book will make you feel something without being excessively long? Yes. And do I think it's a book that almost every person I've seen who's read it, loves it? And it will get you into Frederick Bachman and kind of the realm of historical fiction or fiction. And I just love it. It's one of my favorite books. It's one of my favorite books I've ever read. So it just kills me to not recommend it, so I have to. It's 335 pages. Frederick Bachman is very quirky. He writes a very specific style, that I love. Anxious People is just so good. It's basically about, if you read the first page, can you tell I love Anxious People? Because I will not give it up. This is just the beginning. A bank robbery, a hostage drama, a stairwell full of police officers on their way to storm an apartment. It was easy to get to this point, much easier than you might think. All it took was one really bad idea. So that's what it's about. I recommend to everyone, if I could just read one book forever, it would be this book. I love it. I think about it all the time and I want to reread it. But I think it's a great book that makes you feel something, and then you look for that in other books, which gets you into reading. So enough about Frederick Bachman. So my second fiction is actually historical fiction, and it's by Taylor Jenkins Reid. It's Daisy Jones and the Six. Not only is it an amazing book, I have heard that it's amazing on audiobook. I cannot process words just spoken to me, so I am not really great with audiobooks, but I heard it's really good. It is interview style, and I think that's what sets it apart from a lot of other historical fictions in being able to read fast. So Daisy Jones and the Six follows a band, and it's interview style. So as you're reading all of their different perspectives because they're all talking. It's just so good. It's so interesting. I remember at the end of it, I looked up, is Daisy Jones and the Six real? And that was embarrassing because of course they're not. But I was that convinced because it was that good and that realistic. I loved it. There's a movie. There's an Amazon series about this book. Or this book became an Amazon series, and that is really good too. Okay, the last section we're going to talk about is dark romance. And like I said in the beginning of this video, I am not a big dark romance person. It's weird because I love thrillers and I love romance, but for some reason meshing them is not really something I enjoy yet. But I have read 2 series that I thought were so good and they got me hooked, and I literally could not stop reading the series. So the first one is Brutal Prince by Sophie Lark. What is this called? This is the Brutal Birthright series. After I read Brutal Prince, I could not stop until I read every single one. So that's how good the series is. That's how interesting it is. It's such a cute cover, but it is, let's see. It is 334 pages and it follows 2 mafia families, the Griffins and the Gallows, and it's one of them getting married to another one of them. So it's kind of like a marriage of convenience to help bind their families together. Yeah. Honestly, I can't remember a lot of it in terms of like the plot, but I remember loving it and it was a great time, and I have it still on my shelf, which means I care about it enough to not get rid of it. I feel like the series is a great entrance to dark romance. Sophie Lark has way more dark romance, so if you love it, you can read way more from her. And it's just so good. It's so interesting. It's like action-packed. It's mafia family, so it's really intense sometimes, but it's really good. The romance is really good. There's a lot going on, but it's really enjoyable. And like I said, it gets you to read. Last but certainly not least is this series, Mindfuck series. This book altogether is 638 pages, but it's 5 books in one. So this is all 5 in the series. The first one's only 132 pages. So every book is under 200 pages. It's just when you put it all together in that one series, it's 638, I think. But it's so good. I think about it a lot still. It reads like a Criminal Minds episode. It's about a serial killer and an FBI agent, and they're together. So it's a romance. Like I said, it's a dark romance. But the romance is the biggest plot, but also the serial killer's plot is really interesting. So it's so good. So I really recommend that. I think that would be a great way to get hooked. Like I said, the biggest goal for any book in this video is to hook you and to make you want to pick up the book and then pick up more afterwards. That's the goal. So I really think that all of these books do that. So I tried to cover as many genres as I could to give you 10 books that would hopefully get you back into reading or get you started. So I really hope at least one of these books could help you either instill a love for reading or bring back that love for reading. I know personally, after I read most of these books, all I wanted to do was read more. And so I hope you get that same feeling. And I hope to see you in the next video.